Hello and welcome to our second edition of Top of Mind Florida. I'm Michael Williams.
And I'm Brian Crowley.
Good to have you with us. And we had so much fun the first time. We're going to give it another go here. And we've got so much, you realize, Brian, how much there is to talk about in the state of first 22 million people with a guy like you who's covered politics back and forth. You didn't like my slogan. I said, between your 300 years in print journalism and my 44, just retired from broadcast journalism. I one time said to Brian, only the sunshine's covered Florida water. He said, keep working on a slogan there, buddy.
Well, and you and I worked together for 14 years on WPTV's To The Point, a Sunday program that dealt with issues and other topics. And now we have Top of Mind Florida.
That's right. And always proud to say one of the best in the biz in terms of analysis.
And Top of Mind, let me just set this up, because you're not going to get the answer right now.
Okay.
You'll get it at the Crowley closer. But the question is going to be...
You're getting into this podcast thing, the teaser.
Go ahead. What do Arizona, Maine, New Hampshire, Oregon, and Wyoming have in common?
I'll mull that over as
we're talking. I'll give you the answer at the Crowley closer.
And on our old broadcast, and now Top of Mind, a familiar face for a long time. Let's introduce him right now. Michael Barnett, former Palm Beach County Commissioner, longtime GOP chair in Palm Beach County, and we're going to get to this a little later. We'll talk politics, no surprise, with my politically steeped buddy and me, because all he and I do is talk politics in our off time. Michael, first of all, thanks for being with us. We're going to talk about some of the important work you're doing now. Restoration Bridge International Food Resources. You're also a trustee, Palm Beach County State College District Board trustee. You are a busy man in your post-political life, but I guess the question, and we'll let Brian kick it off, we'll talk a little politics first, though. Welcome aboard.
I'm glad to be on board, and I appreciate you having me back. I've missed talking with you, going back at least 10 years. It was always a lot of fun. I'm very happy to be back.
Well, we're thrilled to have you, and you'll be getting more calls. So, Brian, take it away.
Well, I have a trivia statement for Michael first. Here's something I'll bet you didn't know. You went to Palm Beach State College.
I knew that.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you knew that. You knew you went there.
Now that we've established that.
I went there when it was called Palm Beach Junior College.
Oh, when I was there, it was called Palm Beach Community College.
There you go.
Right.
He was a trailblazer.
And you went to the University of South Florida.
I did.
So did I. Look how much we have in common. Now, you have to answer this question for me.
Okay.
I have never, in all of my years, it's been a while since I went there, understood why a school in Tampa was called the University of South Florida.
Maybe they never, they didn't know we existed down here in Palm Beach County.
It's the same reason Top of Mind Florida is based in West Palm, which is South Florida.
I always wondered that.
Michael, what he's also not saying is he was carving out stuff he was doing. You were probably using computers. I don't think, you were trying to find a manual typewriter back in your day.
So there's politics that we understand on one level from the outside, even if we're doing strategy or whatever, or reporting on it as Michael and I did for so many years. But you were a county commissioner.
Right.
Was there, not necessarily talking about the county itself, but now being in the mix like that, where did it impact how you thought about politics or how the system works, being on the county commission?
Absolutely. In fact, on my final day as a commissioner, I mentioned how my perspective changed being on the inside, working with my other 6 commissioners and the county administration, Meridiana Baker and all of her staff. Being a party official on the outside, it's easy to criticize and jump down people's throats when you don't understand just how hard they work to make things run in Palm Beach County. When I became a commissioner, I was thrown right into it. I learned about Palm Tran, the Solid Waste Authority, every single department in the county, and 6,000 or 7,000 employees operated by people who love this county. Maybe they don't agree with me politically, but I never knew what their politics were, and it didn't factor into any work that we did as a board or that I did as a commissioner. And I really grew to appreciate these civil servants and how much they loved Palm Beach County as well.
Give us some more cases because that's intriguing, Brian. You got to see it from the inside, and whether you're watching or listening to us in South Florida or North Florida or out of state, I'm very intrigued by the thread Brian's pulling on there. Talk about some of the specific cases where you said, you know what, I have a whole new look. Give us some cases there where you said, this is an aha moment for me.
Well, just the welcome from day one from Virginia Baker, and I'm sorry to see that she's stepping
Yeah.
aside. I developed a friendship with
County
her
Administrator, Palm Beach County.
and a great working relationship. I put aside my party hat, became commissioner because I had to represent all the people, district residents, Republicans or Democrats, and they made my transition to public service very pleasant, and they helped me in everything I needed to do from the people I represented.
But where was a case where you said that if I'd still just been wearing my party hat, I would have gone this way, but I went another way on a vote or my thinking because I was wearing a different hat? Give us an example.
Well, like I said, going back when I was a party chair, 2016, we were rallying people to challenge the penny tax. And I didn't realize until I became commissioner just how badly needed that tax was for our housing needs. Another is Virginia Baker herself. People wanted to see her gone. They wanted to fire Virginia. People were saying, Mike, how would you vote if there were 3 commissioners who wanted to terminate her? Would you be the 4th? And I realized with the new perspective on how government works that there was no reason to get rid of somebody who gave 40 years of her life and doing a good job for Palm Beach County, especially when we were operating like a drum, AAA bond rating. We were, we had tons of money going into our reserves. We had a balanced budget. All of our departments were operating efficiently. People in the county respected and loved her. I didn't think there was any need to make a partisan or political decision on her employment when we need people like her to make Palm Beach County run efficiently. So that's one of the biggest areas I had of a change of mind from coming directly from a political perspective to someone who was in the middle of the county operations from the top level. Absolutely. And I can think of some other examples too.
So how do we get to the point where people who are leaders of parties, people who are activists or anything, get that same message that it's not as easy as it looks when you're actually doing the job? It's easy to criticize from the outside, but then you get in, and you said you criticized from the outside, got in, and got a different point of view. How do we spread that point of view so that people are a little more understanding of how their government works?
Well, it started a little bit for me before I became commissioner. I got to know Assistant County Administrator Todd Bone-Laren, James Green, other people who ran departments. Even before I became a commissioner, I got to encounter them and see the work they did. And it took me getting outside of my comfortable political bubble and the echo chamber, as they say. And, I'm a Republican, still am. I'm proud of the work I did as chairman, but I'm going to tell you, we're not immune from the groupthink and only paying attention to what we want to hear.
None of us are.
We have to expand outside of our safe zones and understand that Palm Beach County, at least as I grew to learn, was much larger than my small political bubble, as large as the Republican Party of Palm Beach County was.
And that's an instructive lesson, whether you're in Palm Beach County or the Treasure Coast or anywhere in Florida listening to that very message. And you talk about this a lot, Brian, because we talk so much, and sometimes you and I would, I don't want to say guilty, but you and I talk about it off camera. We talk so much about national politics, and yet, making sure that your roads are clear, making sure the schools are working, that the police are funded, that the garbage is picked up. And you did talk about this on camera over many years with me. That's where the rubber meets the road. And I hear a bit of that in what you're saying. And you spoke about it often. You still do.
Sure. It's you had people that were talking about getting rid of woke and that kind of stuff in the schools, and they would run for office and maybe get elected to a school board. And I think many of them discovered the same kind of things that you discovered, that the school buses have to run on time, the school maintenance that needs to be done, the budget needs to be taken. So you can take care of some of those hot button issues, but actually running the government is a little more complicated. And as you noted, that often the government staff doesn't get the credit it deserves, whether it's here, Tallahassee, Gainesville, Naples, throughout the entire state, doesn't get this, the credit they deserve for working really hard, often under very difficult circumstances, to just make things happen.
I saw that consistently as a commissioner, and whether it was the head of Office of Eagle Business Opportunity or Community Services would come and give us monthly reports. We have to remember these are human beings, and they always say if you're going to praise, give praise out in the open. If you're going to criticize, do it behind closed doors. I didn't really like the fact that some on the board, I don't want to name any names, would take pride or glee in criticizing people in front of the public cameras to gain political points. That infuriated me, and I wouldn't put up with that. I talked to Virginia Baker about a couple of different circumstances, but a more recent example is the property tax situation. I know Tallahassee is engaging in an extended session to talk about property taxes. There was an idea thrown out about eliminating property taxes. I addressed this with some local elected officials at a forum about a week ago. What would happen if the legislature, who seems to be totally out of touch, thinking that we can get rid of property taxes? How do we fund everything we do in county government? How does the sheriff operate? Where does our Palm Beach County $9 billion budget come from if you get rid of property taxes? And how do you make up for that lost revenue?
Now, for you, that's newsmaking when somebody who's dyed-in-the-wool Republican says the legislature, which is dominated by Republicans, is out of touch. Amplify on that thought.
Well, don't mean to judge the entire group, but sometimes they forget. Some of them may have been local elected officials, council members, or mayors, but the work they do, the laws they pass, have a direct effect on what we in the county commission and in the cities have to live by. For example, they don't have to live under sunshine, but we do, right? They don't have to worry about where we're going to find our revenue to fund Palm Tran or the Solid Waste Authority or fire or police. They can pass a law and let us deal with it, like an unfunded mandate or so. That's what I mean when I say out of touch. I mean, they need to become a little more connected to the realities that they're imposing upon local elected officials who have to live with the laws they pass in Tallahassee. They need to think a little bit more carefully about this property tax issue and other issues.
To switch topics a little bit, as you know better than I, there have been increasing numbers of black voters who have moved over to the conservative side, who have become Republicans, and that's a pretty dramatic historic change for voters, black voters, and not just in Florida, but around the country. You're somebody who maybe a generation ago would not have become a Republican, but today, you are. What changed in the thinking for especially younger black voters? A lot of younger black voters have become Republicans. What's changed in their thinking?
I think Donald Trump, the force of Donald Trump, his personality is magnetic and is attractive to people like me, young black Americans who look to him as an example of success, despite the criticism that he's taken from every sector of the media. They were able to filter that out and see that this is a person who actually really cares about people, despite the image. I got to know him over the last 12 years, and I see that he's not the monster that a lot of folks on the other side of the aisle or in the media or even in our own establishment wing of the Republican Party try to make him out to be. The swing of black votes is not this tsunami that people are talking about. I mean, he still lost a black vote by a significant percentage.
Right.
But just the fact that he was able to eat into even a small percentage of that black vote and Hispanic vote was enough to shift the tide and give him a significant victory.
But there does seem to be, there is some polling that's suggesting, how I hate polls, but there is some polling that suggests that, say, 18 to 30-year-old blacks are, and males in particular, are more and more interested in the conservative side of the aisle.
Perhaps they have always been. I know the black community and the Caribbean blacks that we've encountered and worked with for a long time during my time as chair, we have the same values socially and conservatively. It's just that they have someone. I've always said that no matter what your values, your politics, we need a good leader. And Trump has been that leader that Mitt Romney hasn't been able to be, or John McCain, or George W. Bush, or Marco Rubio, or any of the Republicans who ran in the last two presidential Republican primaries. Trump is, more than anything, a guy who's blunt, in your face. He does what he says, and he says what he does, and you can count on him to tell the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you don't like how rough around the edges he is, or if he makes you feel uncomfortable. I know talked to a lot of black people who said they feel they had more money in their pockets during President Trump's first term. They want, and of course, it comes down to the economy and your pocketbook. You want to do better financially for yourself and your family, and they thought ultimately Trump can do better than Kamala Harris.
And the jury's still out on that, and there will be people jumping through their YouTube screen right now applauding you, and through other ways that will get top of mind flirt out there. And there are also going to be people jumping through their screen saying, what reality is Michael Barnett? Opponents of President Trump will say, what reality is he living in? On immigration, Caribbean blacks may have more trouble getting here. On tariffs, a lot of people, including blacks and others, may have more trouble affording to live their lives here with the up and down, back and forth tariff debate that's going on. Many argue that on issues of the media, while we certainly have our sins, that the president, the New York Times publisher, just wrote a 21-minute essay talking about the huge assault about the freedom of the press, about the judiciary being demonized by this president. So when you talk about a leader, but you have to lead from a place, his opponents will argue, of a respect for the rule of law, respect for the institutions of the country. So speak to that challenge and to those very harsh critiques.
I don't think President Trump cares about those critiques.
But he should care about the issues underlying them, should he not?
Well, absolutely, I think so. But he believes that he's doing the right thing, right thing by not just his supporters, but the entire country. The entire motto, going back to his 2015 announcements, drain the swamp, drain the swamp. And in order to right the ship, as he sees it, you have to make drastic changes, uncomfortable changes. I saw a video of a lady who attended his rally in the Doral, Venezuelan descent, I think. After the election, she ends up getting deported. You can't deny that it's unfortunate what happened to her, but it is what she supported and voted for. If you're in the country illegally, President Trump made no secret about the fact that he was going to make sure the laws of this country and our border laws were going to be enforced. If I were committing a crime and President Trump gets elected and he promised to crack down on crime and I get arrested, not that I would ever commit any crimes, but I couldn't be upset with him for enforcing the laws that I agreed to live under, whether I'm here in this country legally or illegally, whether that woman was here in this country legally or illegally. It's that situation. I hope she can make it back to this country according to our laws. Tom Homan said in
the immigration czar.
Exactly
Tom
right.
Homan, yeah.
Before he became immigration
Before
czar.
that, yeah.
Going back and forth with Representative Ocasio-Cortez. It's the law. You have to obey the law. If you want to come to this country or stay here legally, you have to be here legally.
Well, and again, this is one of the things we used to talk about on To the Point. You have people of views all across the spectrum, and you forcefully defending yours. And as I said, I generally find about half the people jumping through the YouTube screen will be fully applauding you, and the other half will be challenging you. But that's really what the American experiment and debate is supposed to be.
Right.
If I can, Brian, I'm always curious for you, your circumstance, your GOP chair, powerful figure. You're appointed to the commission. You end up losing last year to Joel Flores, the first Hispanic elected to Palm Beach County District 3. What kind of decompression, how hard is it to take? You've been right at the center of it all, and then you're out. Is there a decompression? Is it sort of politically depressing for you for a while? How do you regather? And do you end up saying, I'm going to get back in the arena and run again?
I guess it is. I've never run for office before, and so I've never lost. It was all the new experience.
That was a good track record on the front side.
Right. But I look at it this way. It was a great shot of not winning this race. Looking back at the numbers, it was a very heavily Democrat district. I fought like hell and gave it the best shot I could. And even the folks who were on the other side were impressed how better I did than they expected. But even more than that, I'm proud of the work I did as a commissioner, which people seem to really appreciate. Every time I meet with a member of the board or staff at the county, they say, Mike, we miss you. We wish you could come back. Things are okay now, but we really liked working with
So
you.
you're
It was
running again,
enjoyable.
right? You're going to run again. You're going to get back in politics?
I'd love to if there were a good opportunity to do so, or accept an appointment from the governor. Again, if the opportunity presented itself, I accepted this county commission appointment reluctantly because I didn't know if I could do the job or if I was the right person for this district. But I always say yes, figure it out later, and I've never regretted any kind of decision like that, whether it was the party or with the county. So if something arises, I'll go for it, or at least very seriously consider it. But yeah, I was regrouping for a couple of months. It was tough, but I knew better things were coming. So I was just in a holding pattern, waiting for the next step. And it came pretty quickly with my appointment to the Palm Beach State College Board of Trustees, and now with
Brian's
this amazing,
old school, I've heard.
right? Right. It's a great school.
Yes, it is.
And now with Restoration Bridge International, which allows me to continue the community service work that I really enjoyed as commissioner, which was my favorite work that I would do as commissioner.
You were talking about that food resource work. 100,000. You help provide food to those who are food poor. In Palm Beach County alone, 1.5 million people, and I think you said you all help 100,000 a month.
Per month, right.
So that's 1 out of 15 people who are in desperate food straits, or potentially so, each month. It speaks to the volume of that problem. Talk about that.
I was shocked when I learned about the numbers. The first time I ever witnessed a food drive at a church with cars in line miles long. There's real need in Palm Beach County, which was, again, surprising to me considering how wealthy Palm Beach County is. But there are pockets of poor neighborhoods all around the county, and people come from miles around to get in line. Restoration Bridge International, we started about 20 years ago under Pastor Dan West. I work with his successor, Jason Mandel, the executive director. Again, we are not a food pantry, but we collect food from farms and supermarkets. Most of our food comes from Feeding America, or their subsidiary, Feeding South Florida. We get trucks coming into the warehouse, which we have at the Palm Beach Sheriff's property, the Stockade. We're a strong partner with Sheriff Bradshaw, who helps us a lot. The food comes in, our volunteers sort it, box it up, and then we immediately ship it out on trucks to dozens of different food pantries and churches and other drives throughout the county.
Beautiful effort.
Every day. Wow. We have our major food drive on Saturday mornings at the Boynton Beach Mall on Congress, near the former Sears store next to the Christ Fellowship Church. That's one of our biggest operations, and we feed maybe 1,500 cars or 2,000 cars every single day, every single Saturday.
What's your wider message for the audience beyond here? Because Top of Mind Florida, we're trying to appeal to a Florida-wide audience. Food insecurity, something that from one end of the state to other, is something we have to keep a sharp eye on and be attentive to, as you've decided to be.
Well, if it's so bad in Palm Beach County, it must be as bad or worse elsewhere in the state. We're a very big state. A lot of people, 1 out of every 5 kids is actually food insecure. And I learned about this from Restoration Bridge, but I also know during my time as commissioner, we have a lot of families living in their cars. My district, District 3, was ground zero for the homeless epidemic in Palm Beach County. I would talk to principals at Lake Worth High School and John I. Leonard, high school graduates, seniors getting ready to graduate, going to sleep in their parents' cars. Where we would participate with the sheriff's office in the homeless point in time count. Have a great friendship with Homeless Advisory Board, Ezra Krieg, and brought in some of my staffers when I was commissioner from community services who work directly on the ground with the sheriff's office and the community services with homeless people. And one thing I did learn is our community services staff don't get paid enough. A lot of them are helping and counseling people who are not making all that much less than our county employees.
Mm-hmm. Let me turn it over. See, you and I were kidding before we started doing Top of Mind. You get 3 guys in a room who like to talk politics. We could go on for 3 hours. We'll have to put a bow on it here in a second or so, but we'll leave our political guru to put that bow for any follow-up questions before his famous Crowley closer. Take it away, sir.
Well, what is your advice to people out there on both sides of the aisle who are hardcore, don't want to listen to the other side? more argumentative than actually talkative with each other. How do we start bridging that?
Well, I had this conversation a number of times recently. Some of these folks that I've dealt with, I'm sure it's the same in both parties, won't listen to reason. You have to work aside from them to accomplish your mission. But those who are willing to reason or listen to reason, keep an open mind. Consider that your point of view may be wrong. Even no matter how dead right you think you are, just possibly consider listening to the other side, whether it's politics or any issue. You might learn something. You might change your position. You might think differently about, like I did, government servants and government service overall. Just keep an open mind if you can. But there's just some people who just will not listen to reason, and it's unfortunate. You got to pray for them.
That's great.
You've talked about this for so many years, and Michael, you used to talk to us in our former life, WPTV on To the Point. You talked about it eloquently too, is that just that openness to say, whatever party I am, I'm going to listen to another point of view. And I can't say how many, we're about to have one of your Crowley closers, but how many times you brought it up. You can't really repeat that message enough in today's world, this
Right.
polarized world. You really can't.
You see the results. When I was with you, election night 2022, alongside Commissioner McKinley, we weren't arguing, cutthroat political party politics. We were having a very friendly conversation like human beings, civilly. And a lot of folks still talk about how much they enjoyed that interaction. That maybe Tallahassee and Washington can learn from that.
Final top of mind thought from you, sir. Whatever you want to talk about, put a bow on it, and then we'll have the expert bow tire take it away. Final thought.
Well, I'm really grateful that you had me on. I hope to be back a lot more, and congratulations on your new show. I would just say, just my time as a commissioner was actually more enjoyable than my time as chairman. I'm moving in a direction of public service. I'm not going back to the practice of law. And I would say get involved in your local government and help out. It's a big community out there, and there's a lot of need. Volunteer for organizations like Restoration Bridge or other groups. You get a lot more out of it than you give when you volunteer.
Michael Barnett, we heard you loud and clear, so you can rest assured the chair will always be warm for you. So,
thank you.
Over the years and many times in the future. And on that note, sir, our famed Crowley closer.
Well, I asked the question, what do Arizona, Maine, New Hampshire, Oregon, and Wyoming have in common?
They're all part of the United States.
Good job, Michael. They are all part of the United States. They also do not have a lieutenant governor.
I was going to do that second.
And we haven't had a lieutenant governor since February 16th, which begs the question, why do we have a lieutenant governor? Are the other 5 states that don't have one, are they right? Because they don't have a job, sort of like the vice president. They don't have a job. They just, they wait for the governor to die, or the president for the vice president. So really, should we be the 6th state that doesn't have a lieutenant governor?
You're going to see him traipse into Tallahassee pushing on this, Michael. He'll need your expertise to work all sides of the aisle. Brian, as always, such a pleasure. Michael Barnett, we appreciate you being with us on Top of Mind, Florida. Always a pleasure to be sitting alongside this gentleman.
And thank you for watching.